Hello, this is Jerry Abah, aka the Coding Musician, welcoming you to my very first video, a beginner series on Codewars. In case you don't already know, Codewars is an online platform, just like so many other ones that exist, like LeetCode, HackerRank, and some other ones, where developers go to practice various code challenges to achieve code mastery and improve upon their existing skills. This is not a platform that teaches you how to program. Rather, it is expected that you are coming in with some knowledge, at least some basic knowledge of whichever programming language you would like to work on. So for this particular series, I'll be focusing on C# programming language. So like I said at the beginning, it's going to be a beginner series video. So I'll be walking us through some questions focused on level 8, a selected questions level 8 difficulty level. And for today, I believe we'll try to work on about 5 different challenges. And then in subsequent videos, we'll do more. Over here, if you take a look at my screen, I have my Codewars page opened, and I'm about to go over here. There is a search box where you can type in probably the name of a particular challenge that you want to solve if you have an idea, or you can go to the tags and make your selection from there. Over here, you can click and select whichever language that you want to practice these challenges on. And the first exercise I would like to work on over here is going to be a particular challenge called calculate average. So I'll type it over there and I'll search calculate average. As you can see, it's an 8 KYU, which means a beginner series, a beginner level. And you go over here, you click on train, and then it brings you over to this page where you will see the instruction. The instruction says write function average, which calculates average of numbers in a given list. And then this is where you're expected to type in your code here. And let me move this to this side. Over here, once your code is ready, you can click on test, or you click on attempt to see how you did on your code. All right. At the end of this video, if you take a look at the links below, I'm going to share about 3 different links. The links to Codewars, it's a free platform. I'll also share the link to the ones called LeetCode and HackerRank. Those are also some other very credible platforms where developers, software engineers go to train some more, perfect their coding skills, and help them in how to answer programming or coding challenges when they go for interviews. Yeah, so it's a good platform. I strongly encourage you to work on them. I like Codewars because it's a free platform and you can literally work on any question you wish to work on, whether in level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. So in subsequent videos, we'll move up. All right. So this question says we should write a function average which calculates average of numbers in a given list. So I will quickly like to mention a few things before I attempt this question. And it is the fact that when you are attempting Codewars or any programming challenge at all, it's very important for you to be patient with yourself. Don't overthink it. Take it one step at a time. Be ready to create your own abstraction or solution that you want to come up with. You can try something at the beginning. If it doesn't work, no harm in going back again and trying another method and see which one actually works better. So, but the most important thing is make sure you go back to the instructions, read it again, understand it before you begin to attempt the question. So this particular one says write function average, which calculates average of numbers in a given list. So, and if you take a look at line 3 in the solution here, let me see if I can enlarge my screen. Maybe this will look much better, hopefully. Yeah, or better still, I can increase the, let me zoom in so that it will be more visible. I hope this is much better now. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I would like to do is to create a condition where the code will return 0 if the array is equal to null. So over here, I'll create a comment and say this returns 0 if array is empty. So, and how do you get to do this? You do this by using an if statement, by saying if array equals null, you close it, you go down here and you open a curly braces. We already have a return 0, so I'm just going to move it to the middle and then bring my closing curly braces here. So this settles that condition. It will return 0 if the array, the given array, is equal to null. And then I'll move forward further and say I'm going to create a section that returns the average of items, the average of array items now. And then for me to do that, I'm going to need to create a variable of type double. So I'll say double, excuse me. So to put a comment, I'll say this returns average of array items, and then the variable is going to be type double. I can call it my numbers, and make it equal to 0. Yeah, we're just declaring that variable right there. And then since it's an array, a good way to go through all the items inside of an array is to use a for each loop. And it's possible that a for loop could work as well, but I prefer to go with a for each loop so that it can go through each of the items in the array and add them to the total count of the arrays. So we'll do it this way and say for each var number in array, for each var number in array, my numbers I'll use this short form of saying plus equals number. So what this does is that this adds a total of all the array, or I can just say all items in array. Perfect. So that's what this particular code does. So the for each loop goes through each item, each element in the array, and then it adds that item, which is referred to as var number on line 13 here, and adds it to my numbers. So I guess I need to correct myself here. I'm gonna start my naming with small letter. Yeah, double my numbers. So yeah, that looks better now. So this will create the total of what I needed. And then the next thing I'm going to do after creating the for each, right here, right below the for each, I can decide to put my return statement here and say return as much as possible. I like to create very short condensed code if it works for me, instead of creating like a longer method. So what I'm going to do right here is to say return my numbers divide by array.length. So array.length is one of the inbuilt methods in C# that automatically gives you the length of items inside of an array. So while my numbers here is the total sum of all the items inside of the original array added together or put together. All right, so this should work hopefully. So I'll go back and we'll test our code and see how we did. Okay, now we are back here. It's time to test and see what it tells us. Okay, we didn't pass the first time, so let's see what's wrong with our code. And solution test failed, expected 0. So what did we do wrong? Let's see, class average solution if array equals null, return 0, yes, and my numbers for each var number in array, my numbers plus equals number, good, return my numbers divided by array.length. All right, it looks good to me, so I'm going to attempt it again a second time. Okay, so you see that it passed. For some reason, which I can't explain right now, the test button is not cooperating with our code, but the attempt says our code looks correct, and it passed. So we have the 3 different tests in the test sample test passed. So all I need to do right now is to click on submit. So by submitting, you notice that over here my number moved from 2 to 4. Yeah, and it says there's this congratulatory message that pops up whenever you finish solving a particular code. A good thing to do is to click on how satisfied you were with this kata, and it's going to add you a bonus point of 1 mark. There we go, it's increased to 5 now. All right, so that's how we were able to attempt the very first question. And there are actually shorter methods that one could get to do that. For example, if you take a look at how this guy did his own, he used what is referred to in C# as an inline if statement, and which is usually written in 1 line. And you can see over here he brought in a using statement which was not part of the original code, but this is very, very okay, and one is allowed to do so. I think I actually prefer his method to mine. simplified and straightforward. But for the sake of explanation, for those who don't know how to use the link method, then it's better to go the longer route of using the if statement. So he brought in using system.link, and that helped him to achieve the same answer using a one-line if statement, which returns the array.length as long as the length is not 0 and the content is not 0. It brings out the average using the method array.average. Awesome, good stuff. Okay, so the next one I would like to attempt is called how to remove an exclamation mark. So I will say the name is exclamation marks series number 2. Search for it. Exclamation mark series number 2. Remove all exclamation marks from the end of the sentence. Okay. Now this is the example. There are exclamation marks all over the place, and we're expected to write a code that will remove all the exclamation marks. All right, let's attempt this and see. All right, let's expand this so that we can have a clearer view and see what we can do. Coding and coding. Okay, public static string remove string s. I'm gonna attempt this by bringing in a using statement and say using system. That's the only one I need for now. And then over here, the first step I will use is to say, to create a char variable, which is like a character that will indicate the character that we want to trim. So I'll start by typing in create char variable indicating the char to trim. Then next, the next step will be return the given string after applying the, so the method I'm gonna be using to actually trim the exclamation mark is called .trimEnd. Okay, so this is one of the methods available inside of Visual Studio. If assuming you're trying to solve this inside of Visual Studio, it's one of the methods that is popularly used to manipulate strings. So when you're working with string data types, excuse me, if you're working with string data types, the .trimEnd is one of the methods that you can easily take and make use of when you're trying to manipulate strings. All right, so return the given string after applying the .trimEnd and input the char to trim. Okay, so now let's begin approaching this question. Like the first thing we like to do is to create a char variable. Some people prefer to call it car or char. All right, I'll go with char. The char variable like this, and just to trim. What are we trying to trim here? We're trying to trim an exclamation mark. So this is how you do it. Because you're trying to trim an exclamation mark, put the exclamation mark as a string inside of curly braces. Okay, so this is how you instantiate a char, a character like this. All right, and then the next line, straight to the point, we'll say return s, which is our given string on line 4. Return s.trim end. Now we bring in our method, and then we'll now bring in what we want to trim. What do we want to trim from line 10? It's obvious that we want to trim an exclamation mark, which is called chars to trim. So we'll bring in chars to trim. We'll bring it in here, and you end with a semicolon. That's all that you need to do as far as this particular question is concerned. So let's go back and take a look at how we did. All right, so over here, let's test our code and see. Awesome, it passed. And then hit on attempt. And submit. Always remember to submit so that you don't lose your points. And click on the bonus of vary so that I can get the 1 extra mark. Awesome. 2 down, 3 to go. So the next one I would like to attempt is called, is this my tail? When humans begin to have tail, then something has gone wrong. Okay, it's actually about animals. So let's take a good look at the question. Some new animals have arrived at the zoo. The zookeeper is concerned that perhaps the animals do not have the right tails. To help her, you must correct the broken function to make sure that the second argument, tail, is the same as the last letter of the first argument, body. Otherwise, the tail wouldn't fit. If the tail is right, return true, else return false. The arguments will always be strings and normal letters. For Haskell, body has the type of string and tail has the type char. For Go, body has type string and tail has type run. Well, that's for those who want to attempt the question using programming languages Haskell and Go. But since we're doing it in C#, this doesn't have anything to do with us. So from the question, you discover that there is already going to be a code given, but we need to fix the bug. Now, if you take a look at the tag here, it says bugs. So it means this particular code comes with a bug. Awesome. So here we go. String sub equals body.substring body length minus tail.length. So there is a simple true or false scenario here, and taking a good look at it, the code is actually complete. It's just missing one tiny little bit. And what does this tells us? So a good thing to always do, a good approach, is to carefully read through your code from the top to the bottom, just the same way that computer is going to run your code anyway. So let me take it back for a second and quickly do something here to help you see what I'm trying to say. So right now, we've not touched anything on the code yet. So we're going to try to run a test and see what the answer tells us, since we're trying to fix a bug. All right, so over here, this is the error output that we get. Solution.cs, line 8, character number 18. It's expecting a semicolon, and also line 10, character number 19, it says a semicolon expected. Well, that's just two things. So this gives us a clue on what we need to correct. Now, if you remember, C# is a strongly typed language, and it uses a lot of it likes its what do we call them now? It likes you to always put in the semicolons or the full stop where it's needed. Everything has to be where it should be. Unlike programming languages like Python, that Python doesn't care about punctuations. So if this was in Python, it will go smoothly without any semicolons expected. But C#, unfortunately, no. So let's go back to our code and begin to correct it. Let me expand it once again. So over here, the first obvious thing, it says on line 8 from the error that showed up when we tried running the test, a semicolon expected. And then on line 10, it also says a semicolon expected here, return false. And then remember that based on the question here, we are making a comparison. Does the body fit the tail, or does the tail fit the body? Okay, so that's what we're trying to find out, to mix and match, to match the body to the tail. So if the sub, and what is the sub? The sub is referring to the body. If it is equal to, now if you notice, the question came with only one equality sign on line 7, which actually seems to be assigning a tail to the sub. That doesn't help us. So for us to achieve an equality, we have to add a second equal sign here and say if sub equals tail, which is being read in C# as if sub is equals tail, return true, else return false. So those are the corrections that needed to be done here. And then let's go back and try running our code again this time around and see if we're missing anything. Exit code 533, error. The name body length does not exist. Okay, let's see. Okay, awesome, that's a good catch. And then 5.6 says string does not contain a definition for length. Okay, I think it's looking for a using statement here, and I'm going to, yeah, that's why I said, are you missing a using directive or an assembly reference? So I'm going to at the top here add a using statement and say using system. All right, so let's try running it again and see what else are we missing. 6, the code name body length does not exist. That is true. So over here, C#, the dot length method in C# uses a capital letter L and not a small letter l. That's why we're getting this error. Now you may be wondering, how do I know this? In my previous exercises working in Visual Studio, when I tried using the dot length method, or probably the last exercise we did, you remember we used a dot length method. and .length method makes use of a capital L. So it's going to be body.length and tail.length. Capital L, body.length. Delete the small letter L, and also tail.length, capital letter L. Let me expand it once again for you to see. So this is what we have now. Okay, correct tail, string body, string tail, string sub equals body.substring. All right, over here too, in C#, it's gonna be small letter S for substring, body.substring, body.length minus tail.length, capital L. Okay, if sub equals tail, return true, else return false. Looks good to me now. All right, so let's go back and test our code. Yay, here we go. Awesome. So this works now. Details matches based on this code, and if it's not, it returns false. All right, so let's go ahead and submit, make our attempt and submit the code, passing. Awesome. We're gradually making progress. Always remember to click on vary so they can get the bonus point. And then so I guess we have 2 more to go. Okay, so let's try another one. This is gonna be super simple and super easy. It's called Is It Even? Is it even? Question mark. So in this kata, we are passing a number n into a function. Your code will determine if the number passed is even or not. The function needs to return either a true or false. Numbers may be positive or negative, integers or floats. Floats are considered uneven for this kata. All right, so let's go over and create the function for complete this function rather, that passes a number n and then determines if the number returned is even or not. All right, they said your awesome code here, so we're going to give them an awesome code. And in attempting this, I would like to try using an if statement. Yeah, to make the comparison or to check and see if the number is even, return true, and if the number is false, if it's not an even number, return false. Yeah, if it's an even number, return true. If it's not an even number, return false. And how do you get this done? Every number divisible by 2 is considered an even number without a remainder. But if the number is divisible by 2 and has a remainder, then it's an odd number, so it's going to return false in that case. So let's proceed by saying if n, which is the given number now, if we divide it by 2, if it's equals to 0, that means it's an even number, so it will return true. Open your curly braces and go inside of here and say return true. And then right here we'll say return false. You can, if you want, you can decide to use the else statement to complete it, but since there are only 2 options, it's either true or false, I feel I can easily omit writing the else, which will save us about 3 additional lines of code. Yeah, and just make it 1. So else return false. That's all that we need to do in this. Let me expand and enlarge it here for you to see it clearly. So I'll go over it again. So we are given a number n. We need to check if the number is an even number or an odd number. If it is even, return true. If it is not even, return false. So the focus is on even number. So we're using the Boolean true or false to check if the number is even. And how do you check if a number is even or an odd number? You divide that number by 2. Okay, so after dividing the number by 2, if there is a remainder, then it is not an even number. But every even number divided by 2 will come out without a remainder. It's going to equal to 0. So that's why we said n divided by 2, n modulo 2 rather, n modulo 2 equals to 0. Okay, so what is remaining after you've divided a number by 2? If the remainder is 0, return true, then the number is an even number. But if the remainder is any number more than 0, then it's not an even number. It's going to return false. I hope I didn't confuse you with that explanation. All right, so let's go back here and attempt running our code test. Awesome. So it passed. Attempt, submit, and we get the bonus. Cool. Okay, so let's go to the last one for today. For today, the last one we're going to attempt is one of the beginner series called School Paperwork Using System. And School Paperwork. Your classmates ask you to copy some paperwork for them. You know that there are n classmates and the paperwork has m pages. Your task is to calculate how many blank pages do you need. So in this case, we need to know how many blank pages we need. For example, let's look at the example given. If we're having 5 classmates and 5 homework pages, paperworks. So if you multiply each, it's going to give us 25. That's the number that's needed. All right. And then take a look at this. If n is less than 0 or m is less than 0, return 0. Cool. So let's go over here and begin to attempt this question. Okay, so we're given the following parameters: public static int paperwork int n. Okay, good to know that we're working with type int, and int m. Happy coding. Dimension. So to attempt these, an if statement should work within a line of 4 lines of codes rather. So I'm going to try the if statement and see. We'll say if the first given parameter n is not less than 0 or m is not less than 0. Okay, so if either of this is true, that n is less than 0 or m is less than 0, then it's going to return 0. That's part of the instructions in the code. Okay, and then you'll now say we'll multiply n by m to give us the total number of paperwork that's going to be involved, because we know two factors. We know the number of classmates and we know the number of paperworks that each person is going to require. All right, so to get the total number of paperworks, multiply the two. That's what we need to do here. So if n is less than 0 or m is less than 0, we're going to return 0. Well, I like having a clean, well-organized code. That's why you see me cleaning it up and pushing my curly braces to match and fit perfectly. All right. Okay. So if the condition above is true, then we're going to return 0. But if the condition is not true, that means n actually has something 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and above, and m also has something in it, which is a tangible number, something greater than 0. Then we're going to return n multiplied by m. That's it. That's all we needed to do here. Don't overthink it. Don't struggle with it. Remember, if it's not clear or if you're confused, go back and read the instruction and see the example. Your task is to calculate how many blank pages do you need. And take a look at the example. The example gave us a classmate number of n, which was 5, and the paperwork has 5 pages, which is m. So I'm simply working based on the example here. So don't complicate things for yourself. All right. So let's test our code and see. Awesome. It passed. Okay, submit. And like it. Good job, guys. So it's been an interesting, this person decided to use some lambda expression here and got his code into one line, which is totally fine and okay. So if that's one of the methods you like doing, awesome. So usually after you've submitted your question, you're gonna see other solutions by other people and see how they did theirs. Single inline if statement. Awesome. Yeah, this one decided to use the math.max function. That's cool. I like that. Okay, I guess this person did something similar to what we just did. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of today's session of our first 5 code work questions. And before the end of the week, we'll find time again and work on an additional 5 questions and upload them here for us. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Once again, please kindly support this channel by clicking on the subscribe button and the notification bell to follow up with subsequent videos that we're going to be uploading. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of your day, your evening. Well, it's evening here in Las Vegas, Nevada. So take care. Bye.